And I have no problem with cooperative relationships that accomplish just that. And I also don't have a problem with a center broadening its focus to meet the needs of the client for the sake of saving that child. But one of the things that has troubled me is some pro-life groups are saying the whole movement, the whole pro-life movement must adopt this more whole life, pro-abundant life mindset in order to honor God. And my argument is, no, you're honoring God when you save that child. So if you're doing something that helps save that child and you can show that it's being effective in doing that, then you're not going to get an argument from me. But this idea that we have to take on all these other causes starts me thinking, why are we sounding like our secular critics who say you're not legitimately pro-life unless you take on all these other causes? We can only do so much. Now, if you don't mind, I want to... Go ahead.
I just wanted to address one thing, just because I think this is an area where you and I would definitely agree, and that is there's always the difficulty that arises when pregnancy centers become nothing more than a diaper and wipe service. And the reason for that is that, because it's very, very difficult. We got to be really straight with anybody who's listening to you. One of the most difficult jobs in the world is to be a pregnancy center counselor or somebody who's in the room during that ultrasound, because sometimes things do not go well. They put that ultrasound on that woman's body, and they see the baby, and then they realize when that woman gets off the table, they are the last person who will ever see that child alive ever again. That's very, very difficult to do. And so what I do think happens sometimes is, and you don't get a lot of applause for it, right? Because people say, oh, it's controversial. I've never understood why saving the life of an unborn child is controversial, but there are people who say things like that. But you will get a pat on the back all day long for handing out diapers and wipes. And so what happens in some places, and I don't think it's as widespread as some people believe, but I do know for a fact that in some places that I've been to, organizations have been morphed into more of a helping hands ministry and less of a life-saving ministry. And when that happens, I think then we need to have board changes and maybe director changes, because we've got to keep the main thing the main thing. Which is, if you look at if you're going to look at their messaging statement, right, their reason for being, if the line to save children from the intentional death offered by the abortion industry, if something like that is not in your mission statement, you're doing it wrong.
Well, when I do banquets, as you do a large number of them as well, and by the way, you undersold yourself. You have finished as the top speaker at Ambassadors the majority of years for the last decade. So let's be clear, folks, who we're talking to here. But when I've done banquets, and I've never made it past the top 3, so you've got me beat there. But when I do banquets, the number I listen for to judge the health or success of the ministry is this: what percentage of abortion-minded women are you reaching? And what does that number look like? What's the actual concrete number? If you say, well, we gave services to 181 clients, well, that can mean you gave diapers, you gave wipes, whatever. But when I hear someone say, we had 81 women who were scheduled for an abortion or were abortion-minded change their minds, now you've really got my attention, because that's the real number that I'm listening for in these ministries.
Yeah, not just the outreach, what I would call the conversion rate. So out of that, let's say you have 80% of your clients walking through the door are abortion-minded or abortion vulnerable, and through prayer, counseling, and ultrasound, 90% of them choose to give life to their child, which, by the way, I've spoken at many centers where that is those are the kind of numbers that they're posting. These folks are doing it right.